As guitarists, it's really tempting to always strive for those more obvious outward signs of improvement, like being able to play faster or having better tone. But the best investment that I made in my own playing is something way more subtle and way less flashy, but it has an impact on every single other area of guitar playing. Roll the intro. I'm just kidding. I don't have an intro. That would have been cool though. But hello friend, Nathan here, and today we're talking about relaxation, specifically how to easily fret notes with absolute minimal effort and no unnecessary extra tension. Now, before you click out of the video because that might not sound super thrilling, trust me, I felt the same way when one of my teachers first started talking to me about relaxation. 19-year-old Nathan was much more interested in impressing people with his blazing fast chops than he was worried about how relaxed he felt while he was playing. But I am so grateful for my teacher's wisdom and his persistence in convincing me to prioritize relaxation, because I gotta tell you, it revolutionized my playing. So here's why you should get excited about learning how to play relaxed with minimal tension. Number one, it doesn't hurt to play the guitar. I think we've all had that experience where, especially after playing a bunch of bar chords, for example, our thumb starts cramping up and our wrist gets really sore. That sucks. It should not hurt to play the guitar. So learning how to play with minimal tension completely eliminates that feeling and makes playing so much more effortless and enjoyable. And number two, it will actually help you improve in all of those more exciting areas of guitar playing. Unnecessary tension gets in the way of your ability to play faster and with better tone, more legato, everything. It's an investment in your overall ability as a guitarist. I'm gonna walk you through my 3-step practice formula for building a technique based on minimal tension. But first, I wanna tell you about my free training, Fretboard Freedom. Now, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you discovered my music from my other channel where I play my own classical guitar arrangements of music from movies, TV, and video games. So I put together a free video training on my website for you if you want to learn how to make your own classical or fingerstyle guitar arrangements. So one of the key elements of arranging for the guitar is that you need to be able to play melodies and chords together simultaneously, no matter where they travel across the fretboard. So in this training, Fretboard Freedom, I teach you how to find and play chords anywhere across the neck, so you don't have to rely on your limited number of chord shapes or positions that you might have memorized that don't always work. Again, it's completely free. Just go to my website, beyondtheguitar.com, or follow the link down below in the description to check it out. All right, so to introduce this 3-step practice formula for minimal tension in the fretting hand, we first have to retrain where the force we use to push the strings down and fret notes actually comes from. Instinctively, we want to squeeze the neck between our fingers and thumb to create that force that we need to push the strings down against the frets. And this is the main fundamental error we need to correct, and that I was guilty of before I learned how to truly relax the fretting hand. The source of pressure that we use to fret the strings shouldn't be coming from how hard we're squeezing between our thumb and fingers, but rather from the weight and pull of our arm. One of the advantages of sitting in the classical position like this with an elevated neck is that we can then use gravity and the weight of our arm to fret those strings. So if I drop my shoulder and let my arm hang as just dead weight, that'll give me more than enough force to fret the strings in most scenarios. So then my thumb can just rest on the back of the neck completely relaxed, and my fingers only need to store enough tension in them to counteract the weight of my arm so that my hand doesn't just fall through the neck. In cases where the weight of your arm isn't quite cutting it and you do need that extra little bit of pressure, like with some bar chords, for example, again, rather than squeezing with your thumb to get that extra pressure, you just need to pull back with your arm, driving your elbow backwards to get those strings a little bit tighter against the frets. This works better because your arm muscles are larger and can handle that extra tension more easily and for longer without fatigue than our thumbs can. So this 3-step practice formula for minimal tension is going to help you rebuild your technique in favor of this weighted arm concept versus squeezing with your fingers. So each step is going to take you through the 3 thresholds of pressure that we can hear each note go through on the guitar. The first threshold is reached with little to no pressure on the string, and it creates this completely muted note. The next threshold is reached when we add just enough pressure that the string barely makes contact with the fret, and it makes that nasty buzz that we're all familiar with. And then the third and final threshold, add just enough pressure past the buzz point to get a nice clean sounding note. Once you reach this third threshold of pressure and you're getting a clean tone without any muting or buzzing, any extra pressure is wasted. And that's where a lot of our unneeded tension comes from. Once you cross that final threshold, I can keep adding pressure to that note until I'm blue in the face, and it's not going to change the way that the note sounds. So a lot of the times you're working harder than you need to be and you don't even realize it. So paying attention to all 3 of these thresholds of pressure is going to make you hyper aware of the minimum amount of pressure that you need. Minimum amount of pressure that you need to fret a note cleanly, so you have no wasted effort and no unneeded tension. So jumping into step 1 of this practice formula, you're going to be focusing on the first threshold of pressure, muted notes. This is about complete relaxation, hitting the reset button on your bad habits of squeezing and unnecessary tension. I want you to play with the absolute minimum amount of pressure to the point that every single note you're playing is completely muted. So you're going through the motions of playing, making contact with the strings, but not actually applying any pressure to pull them down against the frets. Now for this entire process, you can practice this with simple scales or with actual pieces of music. But if you do work through pieces of music, I recommend taking a new piece that doesn't have any muscle memory or bad habits attached to it. The amount of pressure that we use to fret notes is so deeply entrenched in the muscle memory for a piece that it's going to be hard to apply these new concepts to a piece that already has that muscle memory built into it. So once you start getting used to these concepts, you can always go back and revisit those old pieces later. So again, step 1, you're practicing through a piece or through a scale, intentionally muting every note. I want you to focus on how you're feeling rather than how it's sounding. Practice getting used to this concept of weight in the arm and emptying your hand and fingers of all tension. Once you start to get to the point where you're getting used to these concepts and you're no longer feeling that impulse to squeeze between your thumb and fingers, then you can move on to step 2. The concept of step 2 was actually introduced to me by a brilliant classical guitarist and friend, Evan Taucher, and you can find him on Instagram at Evan Taucher. But step 2 is all about the second threshold of pressure, the buzz point. So throughout this step, I want you to intentionally buzz every single note. And it's gonna sound painfully terrible, but this is where the magic happens. So hang in there, but buzzing every note is actually harder than it sounds because it takes an incredible amount of control. Too little pressure and the note's gonna be muted. Too much pressure and it's gonna ring out cleanly. So to mute every single note, you have to stay in that sweet spot or sour spot of pressure to make that happen. This trains you to become hyper aware of the amount of pressure that you're applying to each note and develops the control that's needed to make tiny adjustments to that amount. And the beautiful thing is, once you get the hang of this, moving on to step 3 is almost effortless. In step 3, you just add the slightest amount of pressure to cross over that buzz point to now play every note clean, but with the minimum amount of pressure. So using the weight and pull of your arm and playing right in that zone of pressure that's just beyond the buzz point is where your technique should live. This is where your fretting hand is going to be the most relaxed. And be patient with yourself. It can take weeks and months to completely break out of bad habits as fundamental as tension in the fretting hand. But just go through and practice these 3 steps a little bit every day. And when you look back in a couple months from now, when your playing feels so much more effortless, you're gonna wonder how you ever played any other way. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, leave a like to let me know and to help more people see it. Don't forget to check out my free training at beyondtheguitar.com if you want to learn how to make your own classical or fingerstyle guitar arrangements. And make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on so you never miss future videos. Here's to making the music you love and making it on your own terms. I'll see you in the next one.